Friday again, and this is fucking Freeology Friday, and I'm fucking Derrick Day, and he is fucking.
Aaron Tomlinson. Good to be here.
I'm
I
having.
almost It's so funny because I almost put AFT. I almost just put initials AFT
Oh,
tonight
dude, you
instead of
should have done that, man.
I know I should have followed my instincts.
Always go with your first mind.
I know. I always overthink it.
What before we get started? What's in the glass, bro?
Yeah, I'm drinking it's just straight mango habanero whiskey. Mango habanero flavored salty dog, I think it's called.
Every time you drink that, I say I got to get some, and I'm gonna have to add that to my repertoire. But tonight, I'm having Select Club pecan praline with some. It actually stands for four kings, not gods, but it phonetically it says fucking. So I'll go with that. Some fucking bourbon. So so it's the combination of those two in the glass, and that's what we're doing. That's what
I'm
we're doing.
guessing you're in rare form tonight. I'm guessing that you had a good time on your little
Man,
vacation.
I had a fucking good time.
Good.
I, I
You
mean,
needed
really, we did a lot of walking, man, because it's like I was watching my Fitbit and killing the step count, right? Because we're walking from one end of the ship because we're on a cruise for 5 days, and so we're walking from one end of the ship to the other, and then we go out on Cozumel and we're walking and walking and we're just walking. We're doing a lot of walking. So, but anyway, we had an awesome time. We had an
it.
awesome time.
You guys did
So
formal night the right way, by the way.
Oh man, we killed it. And I have to say this. I'm not just saying this because it's me. I'm not just saying because it's Maya, my baby, and But we were literally the best dressed couple
Oh,
on the boat, without a
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. I've been to those, so I know. I know you were. And I will just say as a disclaimer, I have never been the best dressed person on the boat.
But that's all right. Stick with me. We're gonna work this out, man. We're gonna work this
I
out
might have been
because
the most eccentrically dressed person on the boat. I think I wore like a light pink suit last time.
if listen, if there's anybody out there that knows any clothing companies that they want to sponsor a show, they can sponsor Freeology and give me an Aaron Cool shirts to wear,
Be awesome.
during the show, and we'll give promotional consideration for that, and let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, I see Sandra Whitley's on, and I was looking for her shirt that she made, and I can't find it. I don't know where I put that thing. So
Well, I had mine
I
on.
was gonna wear it tonight.
I don't know. It was like I don't know. It was like a couple of weeks ago. I think I had it on, but
Hmm.
yeah. But I'm really grateful for those shirts because those shirts are clutch.
Hmm. Yeah, they are. I don't know. I don't know. I may put it with some of my summer clothes or something. I need to dig back out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wasn't where I thought it was going to be.
Well, I'll say this too. I got to say this. But transition this week. It's like my closet is empty, which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
That's
So
great.
yeah, but anyway, so that's good, man. I'm in a peaceful zone. I'm at peace. I'm at rest. I can't tell you. You know, I, I want to say like, okay, well, let me just say this for the record, for everybody that's watching. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life right now. Right now, happier than I've ever been, and that's a beautiful thing. And may I thank you, love you, but like when you go through these kinds of transitions, it's always kind of difficult. It's always a challenge, and I don't want to make light of that. Henry had posted something, saying what happens if your mate wakes up one day and tells you that they don't love you or they don't want to be with you anymore, and and that really kind of resonated with me because kind of let me side note. Maya likes to always say she says don't just segue into something, say side note or something to indicate that you're going off the target path. But he had said that what happens if your mate tells you that, and I was like, I said, man, I said that is a very complex and nuanced premise, right? Because on the one hand, you say, the simple answer is say, hey, wish them fare thee well, all the best, right? But it's not easy to do that because especially when you have like a lot of time and a lot of emotion invested, it's hard to do that. But the flip side of it is that what my response was is that it almost never happens in a vacuum. Never happens in a vacuum. I mean, there are always some circumstances, some mitigating events or circumstances that lead up to that. So that's what
Yeah.
I wanted to say while I was here.
Yeah. I'll just say my wife and I decided years ago that we didn't want to be hostages.
Dude,
I'll just leave it at
that
that.
that'll preach all by itself.
So fortunately, she's keeping me around.
I mean, and listen, that's real talk because if you are in a situation where you're not happy or where you're, under pressure all the time or whatever, you are literally a hostage or possibly even a slave.
Hmm.
You know? And anyway, that's not the subject tonight.
Yeah.
Don't get too invested in that.
Yeah. Well, you signaled, you segued
You want
it.
to keep up the subject tonight, or you want me to do it?
I'll key it up. So,
Okay.
we're going to talk about the difference between nature and prophecy, or something to that effect. I can't remember exactly what the exact title is, but we all know that we missed the rapture. Came and went without us. I was thinking what a better world it would be.
Dude, don't even get me started. I
that's,
was like,
that's just me
the
being
sad part is that the day after, the evangelicals are still here. You know?
exactly. But I talked about the solar eclipse in my private group. So this gives us an opportunity to talk about all this nonsense that goes around Bible prophecy, and not just Bible prophecy. There's other groups that do it as well.
Yep,
But
yep,
looking at very natural, very predictable, very precise phenomenon that's going to happen when you live in a solar system with the moon,
yeah,
right?
yep,
Uh, just very, they can predict the next one, and have.
yep.
Uh, and yet we go into this archaic, it really is just this archaic, ancient sort of, oh my gosh, this means, the end of the world. Jesus is coming. And I reminded my listeners on my other thing that I did, the Bible prophecy folks have been wrong 100% of the time. Don't
Yep.
let that be lost on you. They're wrong every single time. So I posted this question. I said, in what other aspect of life do you put trust in anything or anyone that's been 100% wrong all the time? So you're a car guy, right?
Yep, yep,
So let's just say there's a mechanic somewhere, a shop somewhere, and they screw it up every single time. They do everything 100% of the time, they get it wrong.
yep.
100% of the time. Are you going to take your car to that shop to even get an oil change? Because remember, they screw it up 100% of the time. So that means something as simple as changing the
They're gonna
windshield
fuck it up.
wiper fluid, right? They're going to fuck it
Yep,
up, right? So you wouldn't do that with that. I mean, you wouldn't get a carpet cleaner, hire a carpet cleaner that messes it up and gets it wrong 100% of the time. You
right.
certainly aren't going to go to a surgeon or a doctor. You're not going to take your kid to an ER where they get it wrong 100% of the time. So help me out with this, Derrick. Like, how do people keep falling for this when they look at the track record? You're not going to invest in a company that loses money every quarter, all the time, every time. Like, help it make sense for us.
You know, I'm going to say something. I'm just going to go ahead and go both barrels on this one, right? In order for there to be a second coming, there'd have to be a first. and and there's no evidence of the first, right? So if there's no evidence of the first, there's no chance of the second, and so all of this is just a bunch of bullshit. And this is the thing I used to always say, and I used to say this jokingly back when I was preaching. I would say all prophecy wrong or your money back. All prophecy guaranteed wrong or your money back.
Take that.
Because it's like at the end of the day, I always say, like, listen, if you are going to prophesy something to me, prophesy me some lottery numbers.
Hmm.
Prophesy a stock pick. Prophesy a foreign exchange something. Prophesy something practical, useful. Prophesy a change in interest rates, something useful, and they can't get that. It's like, and here this is something else too, because I was on a live stream with Jermaine. Jermaine's on right now. Hey Jermaine, and Jamel Broadnax, and we were talking about oh God, now it's escaping me. It'll come back to me, but you were talking about like reliability. Like if you had a car that didn't start all the time, you chuck that car, you get rid of it. If you have anything in your life that's like totally unreliable, you're going to get rid of it. And this whole thing about, okay, first of all, whether the eclipse means something or not, I thought this was so funny. PragerU posted something, like they posted a picture of the eclipse and said, God is trying to tell us something. And Michael Steele, the former chairman of the RNC, he says, he's telling you to get a fucking education, or something to that
That's
effect.
amazing.
And but I love Mike. Mike and I go way back, and he's probably, I don't know, probably the single most responsible voice in the Republican Party right now. But that's another story. And then
That's not a high bar though, Derek.
it is. It is.
I appreciate the props, but when the bar's on the floor.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But we were talking about this in the green room. I saw a meme that I thought was really, if when you think of the term "shit on a stick," this is it, right?
Mhm.
It said eclipse 4/8. In other words, April 8th. Earthquake in New Jersey and New York, 4.8, right? And then it said Exodus 4:8, and God is trying to tell you something. And I'm like, why is it that you're always trying to curve fit natural occurrences into something biblical? I remember when Hurricane Katrina hit, and the people were saying, well, that's because of gay marriage and this, that, and the other. And they keep coming up with all of these different things, and none of it. First of all, you said correctly that 100% of all rapture predictions have been wrong. But not only that, it's like 100% of the things that these things have been associated with have been incorrect. So the prophecy is wrong, whether or not Jesus is coming or not. And I already dealt with that. And then the alignment between the phenomenon and biblical prophecy, that's wrong. I mean, how many times does someone get to be wrong before you call them out on that bullshit? How many times? And that's the challenge. When we were talking about what are we going to talk about, this is what. Oh my God! And I was thinking about this, and I put something out there, and I thought this was funny. I got to say to everybody who copied my meme, I appreciate you. I appreciate the the flattery, but I said, for all of you Christians out there that think you're going to be raptured on the 8th, cash at me your money,
Yeah.
send me your stuff. Because, listen, if you say the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just, Okay, great. But you're leaving, so and you consider me to be wicked, so just go ahead and leave it to me. I'll make sure it's fuck, you can even leave me your pets. You can leave me your pets. I'll make sure your pets are well taken care of. But nobody took me out. But you see what I'm saying, Aaron? It's like at some point, somebody has to call bullshit on this, and that's one of the great challenges for me is that, okay, people will say, oh well, this is the just the evangelicals. It's just the evangelicals, right? The problem is that those people who call themselves grace teachers or word of faith teachers or whatever, they don't call the fundamentalists on it.
Excuse me. Sorry, snuck up on me.
And so I'm like, if you think it's bullshit, then call your boys on it. It's like don't let your friends just be out there with their dicks in their hands. I'm sorry, that's crude, but that's really what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Kendra Bell says a good comment here. She said it's because all of those scenarios results in consequences from others' failures. You can't fool yourself into thinking your car is working. If prophecy keeps being wrong, all we see as a consequence is nothing happened. Then they justify the lack of result with faith in the mystery that is God. That's a great answer.
Yep.
Great answer to the question. So you bring up a great point about, I know you're saying it a little bit tongue in cheek, but you bring up a great point about if you're going to prophesy something that's going to practically help and improve our lives or help us ward off something bad that's coming, right?
Yep.
And so I do personally, I'm only speaking for myself, I do believe there is an authentic gift of prophecy. I don't think it's reserved to Christians. In fact, I think they're probably the worst at it. But if you go back to, ancient cultures where they had oracles or they had shaman, that trained their entire lives to be seers. It's then they served a practical purpose within the community, and it was exactly that. Whether it was coming invasions or natural disasters or healing, they served a function in the community that was practical and beneficial to the community. What we have here is a spiritual word salad. I mean, literally. Sorry. Well, it is. It's like word salad is that's a it's not a clinical term, but it's a term that is used to.
It's a grammatical term.
Yeah, to help diagnose schizophrenia, right?
Yeah.
People who have complete delusions about reality will oftentimes speak in word salads. They'll just pick ideas and concepts and just go off the rails with it. And that's exactly what you have here. Oh, there's a solar eclipse. Oh, there's an earthquake. So I'm picking solar eclipse. Oh, there's an earthquake. Oh, there's Exodus 4:8. Oh, we know Jesus is coming back. There's a conflict in Israel that fits over here. And then we just throw it together, all these ideas together that have no even correlation. I mean, there's no causal effects for sure. I mean, how stupid. Why even if you just think about it, let's just assume that you're a believer out there. What is the cause and effect or correlation between a solar eclipse or an earthquake or whatever else you want to point to as a sign? Where's the cause and effect with Jesus coming back or the rapture happening? There is none. Where's the correlation with it? There is none. It's just, religious word salads put together and then served up to people, right? But here's the other thing. If God was going to send us a sign about something major, first off, I think it's going to affect the entire world.
Right.
That's the other thing. It's like, I agree with Michael Steele. It's like, get a freaking education. Like,
yeah,
you couldn't see it everywhere. It's always nighttime somewhere.
So, and on top of that, America, contrary to popular belief, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, Christian believers, America does not factor into biblical prophecy at all.
Yeah, I mean, and why would you pick something so normal? Like, isn't a sign supposed to be something that makes you wonder?
Yeah.
And we can sit back and go, I mean, yeah, if we're living in, I don't know. I mean, heck, even the Egyptians and the Greeks could predict solar eclipses. I mean, they knew the movements of the stars. I guess, we watch Netflix at night. They looked up at the sky. And so they got pretty good at that stuff, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what kind of primitive culture do you have to be in where you see a solar eclipse and think the sky is falling? You know what I mean? It just makes no sense. It just makes absolutely no sense. I mean, talk about just checking your critical thinking at the door.
Yep.
It drove me crazy. I mean, I gave up on the rapture in 1994, I think. So, I didn't ever really get into any of that crap. In fact, I for years was called a heretic because I would teach against it. This isn't what the Bible actually teaches, and this is where it came from. And I researched it, all the roots of it and stuff, and you get into all that stuff. And if you know where it came from, it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating here's what's frustrating to me. You and I think, do a great job of putting out solid content.
Yep.
And it's not easy. There's work involved in it. There's, creativity involved in it, coming up with different topics to keep people interested. We bring forth things of substance, and then you got this other bullshit over here. And it's not just the Christians. The New Age movement was out there talking about this is signaling a global conscious awakening or triggering a global conscious awakening or something, which again, if it's global, then everybody should be affected by it, or at least able to see it if it's a sign. Geez, how can it be global when it's a solar eclipse? I mean, it's just, and yet people will spend their money, they will spend their time, which is their most valuable resource, watching YouTube videos and listening to TikTok videos and whatever. And that's the other problem. And obviously we're doing this, so it's a nuanced conversation, but we live in a day and age where anybody can look like they are an authority because they have a platform to speak their opinions on social media. You know what I mean? At least when we're talking, we're providing logic and reason and evidence. It's evidence-based. We're not just, it just drives me nuts. I know there's a lot of simple people out there. I know there's a lot of people that, they may fit in a below average IQ. It's not their fault, but it just, that's the thing that gets me, it's like, man, they're just out there peddling bullshit and filling up their bank accounts.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But the thing that really troubles me about this is how organized religion factors into this, right? Because you have remember the whole blood moon thing in John Hagee?
Oh yeah, I took that apart back in the day. But yes, I remember.
I'm like, what happens is organized religion will latch onto this and use this as a tool to further manipulate people, as if the people are not already manipulated enough.
Right.
Now we're going to take this to another level. We're going to expand this, and that's one of the things that really gets me about this. So I remember, just recently the earthquake in New York and New Jersey, and that's rare, right? It's rare. So let me just kind of say something to shape this conversation. In the Mississippi Valley area, Mississippi River Valley, around Memphis and Little Rock, they have earthquake drills on a fairly regular basis, because seismologists and geologists have said that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this earthquake is going to happen. It's going to happen, and it's going to be epic when it does, right? So they take this into account because there's some significant science behind it, and they say, okay, we need to prepare. Now, what happened was the earthquake in New York and New Jersey caught everybody with their shorts down, because earthquakes just don't happen up there. They don't. Like for example, in Pennsylvania, you're starting to see earthquakes between, like, say, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia because of fracking,
Mm.
right? They're not plate tectonic type earthquakes. They're hydraulic earthquakes. So so you have that. But for someone to say, okay, just because this was an isolated phenomenon, that somehow God is trying to get everyone's attention is it's absurd.
It's absurd.
That's I can't think of a better word for that. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And again, so like you were talking about God, right? So let's unpack this for a second, because if God is going to try to convey a message,
Right.
is it easier for God to say to manipulate the airwaves or to manipulate the internet, or is it easier for God to manipulate the earth? Now I'm just throwing this out here because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give God a hall pass here. You know, it's like if I'm God, I'm going to take the path of least resistance to get my information across. So everybody's on their smartphones. Get on any subway, any bus in America, and everybody is looking like this, right?
Yep.
They're right. So if I'm God, right, I'm just going to throw something out there and say, hey, earthquake coming. That should be an easy one, right? Or or not even say earthquake coming. Let's just say, hey, I'm God. Here I am. Rather than to try to use an earthquake, which an earthquake is a local phenomenon, which only impacts a handful of people close to the epicenter of the earthquake.
Right.
But if you can get into everybody's phone, you say, all right, maybe you're God. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's think about it this way. The whole premise is wrong. I mean, you kind of brought that up earlier. There's no evidence for first coming. Then if there's no first coming, there can't be a second coming.
That's a whole nother show, by the way.
But regardless, I mean, the premise is wrong. This idea, I mean, again, cause and effect, right? I guess God's going to pour out judgment on humanity because he's really pissed off that we haven't got the message yet and haven't gotten our act together, which is kind of a screwed up premise to begin with.
Yeah.
I do think that's where the atheist arguments of, if God is so concerned about us believing in him or so concerned or her or whatever, such problematic language, right? Then why doesn't God reveal himself in a way that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that also is built on this premise that if there is a God, God cares about what we're doing down here on a microcosmic level. That's the problem. I mean, I could see, like, I was watching something recently, and I watch all kinds of different stuff, podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff. And the guy was saying, I don't think it's a coincidence that when we started setting off atomic bombs in New Mexico, that the whole alien phenomena really kicked up. So you would think if that's true, if there are aliens and there was, a crash at Roswell or whatever, somebody's paying attention, so it's like, hey, you're going to blow a hole in the space-time continuum or something. You're not just fucking around with your little planet or your little space in New Mexico. You're gonna fuck the entire universe over, and so we need to intervene. We need to do something, right? So I could see an argument being made, and I'm just thinking out loud here, so feel free to come back at me, but I could see an argument being made if there was something going on a very macro level that God was be pissed off about, then step in and whatever, split the amount of olives or whatever it is you got to do. Get on everybody's smartphone, say, knock it off, whatever it is you got to do. But the problem with Christianity is everything's so microcosmic,
Yeah.
okay, God, you brought it up, Katrina, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like God is so concerned about gay marriage, which still represents a very small minority of human beings.
Yep.
He's so upset about that he's going to cause this natural disaster over here and make people suffer who aren't making those micro mistakes, if you will. And I'm trying to approach this from the standpoint of being a believer, right? So
Yep.
micro mistakes. Oh, but they made their own micro mistakes because we all have sin somewhere in our lives. It just makes no sense. And that's the problem. Like the whole premise is just screwed up. Like why, if they're assuming there is a God, why would God need to micromanage us?
Right. I mean,
And
this is one of those things they say, like, God is concerned about who you sleep with. God is concerned whether or not you terminate a pregnancy. God is concerned whether you jerk off or not.
right,
But God slept through the Holocaust and slavery.
right,
You know, so I want to call out something here. Sandra said, God isn't the one controlling the media and the airwaves. Those in control are the ones doing so that they can control the level of fear and emotional responses. Sadly, there aren't enough positive changes happening in order to make any necessary changes, such as love, caring for one another, and climate changes. The divine in us is the only thing that can bring real change, and I just don't know if it will happen in my lifetime. So Sandra, I want to address that specifically because I agree with you to a point that if there is a God, we are it. If there's a God, we are it, right? And so, but if you look at God from the Christian paradigm, this God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipotent, right? This God can step in and alter anything. And this is the point that I'm making is that when you start talking about God being involved in these things, okay, God, if you're God, here's a set of things that you can do, right? And these are tangible, measurable, repeatable things that you could do that would absolutely convince everyone that you are who you say you are. Now, my take on it is, Aaron, and this is to support your work and what you do, that I don't believe in the God of the Bible. I believe that the God of the Bible is as big a line of bullshit as you will ever find. But if you say God is this universal consciousness that kind of glues all of our thoughts and all of that energy, that thought energy together, okay, that's something I can get with. Now, if that is the case, that cannot manipulate anything. It's benign. It simply exists. And so, like, when we think about things like the law of attraction, the secret, and all of that, okay, we tap into things and we're able to put an IV into that, right? That we could draw off that and take an IV drip into our lives. I get that. I'm completely on board. I'm completely okay with that. But when you start talking about God as this entity, this all loving, all knowing, all powerful entity, no, I don't see that. I don't see that. But if that God existed, if we operate using the Christian paradigm, then that God could certainly impact the airwaves, impact the internet, impact, whatever. And that's the point that I'm getting at. So Sandra, I'm not trying to make light of what you're saying, but that's and so she said later, she says, I just don't believe in that God anymore. And so we're on the same page.
I'm gonna take Maya's suggestion and turn my signal light on and say I'm diverting the conversation.
Yeah. Side note.
Yeah, side note. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's Maya's word. It's like she always says, okay, because she gigs me on that because like I'll have a stream of consciousness going, and I'll just go off on a tangent, and she says, "Babe, look, just say side note, so so I know that you're leaving the current premises and moving on to something else."
I'm moving on to something else because I'm going to ask you to help me understand something because I've had
Okay.
a couple conversations recently, and I'm definitely at a stage where I'm moving back more to spirituality for myself
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons, a lot of personal reasons, um, and I don't feel the need to convince anybody
Yeah.
of anything. You know what I mean? I really don't.
Mm.
It's a personal choice. Here's what I don't understand with the atheist community. Maybe you can help me understand this, and not just the atheist community. I was talking to someone else who believes in spirituality more from like an Eastern perspective,
Yep.
but absolutely believes that this life is it, right? Like we are one and done. We're just animals basically, and when we die, that's it, lights out, right?
Yep.
And anytime I would direct the conversation anywhere else, but I have just noticed, Derrick, what is it? Do you think that triggers people that people like me trigger people like them? And here's what I mean. I can't tell you how many times I've been taken to task for using the word supernatural.
Mm.
Now, when I use the word supernatural, I am using it to describe an event that is outside of the ordinary course of things.
Yep.
I am not presupposing that event does not have some natural explanation that we have not discovered yet. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yep.
I
I'm
am
with you.
not presupposing, and you know enough about what I teach with consciousness. I've really moved into philosophical idealism where I think what makes the most sense to me is that consciousness is primary. Um, so you could say that's part of nature, right? Consciousness is part of nature. I have no problem with that. I'm simply using a term that people understand in order to communicate something, right? Isn't that the purpose of language? But
Right.
it's interesting to me that the moment I start talking with someone, whether it's online or in person, who is atheist or scientific materialist, and I start talking about some of my experiences, because invariably they'll ask me, you're a smart guy. Why do you still cling to this or hold on to this? And I will start sharing events and circumstances that I have personally experienced. And my biggest problem with religion, I've said this many times on this show, was that religion forced me to compromise my own integrity and doubt my own experiences for the sake of external evidence, albeit their external evidence was coming from the Bible or somewhere else, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I made a commitment to myself that I was not going to do that again. Now, I am open to agnosticism in the sense that I don't know what's out there. At the end of the day, I don't really know.
Yep.
I can't come up with any proof that is going to convince anybody, right?
Yep. Yep.
But why is it that as soon as I start, or anyone else maybe has experienced this, I start talking about what I would call supernatural experiences or experiences that I've had that are paranormal or outside of the regular course of events or whatever, or if I were to say, I believe in God, but not the God of the Bible, but not even that, just bring up, I am met with such skepticism and in some ways, a lot of ways, total disgust. It's like the fervor and it's evangelical almost. It's
Mm.
like, we've got to save you from this belief in God. We've got to save you from this nonsense. Like it's the weirdest thing. So
Mm.
what's your take on that? Why do you think that happens?
You know what? I
It's
think that
looking for me to put you on the spot like that. I'm
no,
sorry.
dude.
I took the
Listen,
conversation in a
you can put me on
totally
the spot
different
anytime. This is fine. Um, here this is what I think is that the indoctrination of Christianity is so pervasive, right? That okay, let me use an analogy, right? And for those of you that don't understand this, I implore you to go and look this up. There is a drawing tool called a French curve, a French curve. And the French curve has a lot of different paisley type shapes in it, and the purpose of the French curve is to fit 2 points together in a curved space that ordinarily wouldn't fit, right? And so I think that what happens is that Christianity has taught a lot of us to French curve shit. In other words, okay, I don't understand how we get from point A to point B, but if I take this thing, and that thing can be a hermeneutic, that thing can be an exegesis, that thing can be a homiletic, and I'm using that to create a smooth arc between 2 points that doesn't exist in nature. And that's the point of the French curve. The French curve allows you to create a harmonic curve between 2 points that ordinarily wouldn't exist. Where normally it would be the straight line between 2 points. But to create an aesthetic, you're creating this curve, right? So what happens what happens in organized religion is there are a lot of things that just don't make sense. They don't make sense. So what do we do to make it work? Okay, so now we apply a French curve, which is some hermeneutic that allows us to harmonize these 2 points. And that's Aaron, that's kind of what I think happens is, we're not trying to, okay, how can I say this? We're not actually trying to make sense of the 2 points. We're trying to figure out a way to harmonize it. We're trying to force it to make sense. And that's the challenge when we start talking about belief versus knowing. When we start talking about belief versus knowing, it's like if I know, I can draw a straight line between these 2 points. But if I don't know, I can either freehand it, right, or I can break out this tool that makes it, that harmonizes it, and that's and here's the thing: the French curve makes sense. The French curve makes sense when you're talking about design, an aesthetic, a subjective viewpoint, right? But when you're talking about an objective viewpoint, now you have to create multiple points along the line. Excuse me for going on a tangent here, but if anybody has played video games, and I see Jimmy Ligon is on, and Jimmy's a gamer, and he'll appreciate this, right? If you go and look at video games, I don't care whether it's NBA 2K or Madden or Halo or whatever, right? That if you get down into the weeds of the game, you'll find that there are no French curves. Everything is a polygon. Everything is point A to point B. Everything is array. The shortest points between two lines is a straight, or the straight, or the straight, or the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And so if you drill down into any video game, there is no French curve. Everything is a polygon. Everything is one, one point to another. So I guess what I'm getting at is that when you start talking about if you're talking about things from a logical standpoint, you're connecting multiple points, multiple straight lines to emulate a curve. You're not creating a perfect curve, but if you got enough points, you can emulate it, right? But what religion does is it doesn't try to create these polygons. It's trying to God, and you know what? I actually have a French curve, but I'd have to get up and get away from my desk to get it, so, to show you what it is. But basically, the French curve, like if you're drawing, like I like to sketch, and I like to draw cars. I like to draw, boats and things like that, airplanes, and you need a French curve for that. If you're gonna do sketching and make it look good, you're gonna need the French curve. But if you're doing this like digitally, you're doing one straight line, or one straight line between 2 points multiple times to get this done. And the point is that if you're going to make sense, if you're going to logically do this, right? If you're going to apply any measure of logic, you're developing a polygon at micro scale to make it look like a curve, right? Now, if you're going the other way and you say, okay, well, I just want to apply a spiritual hermeneutic to this. Now I'm curve fitting. And I've gone, I've gone way off the reservation with this,
Well, here's my question. Like science, and I've worked in academic fields. I work at a university. I'm around academics all the time. And there is a healthy understanding that we don't know what we don't know. So science has to be comfortable with the gaps, right?
Mhm.
We know this phenomena happens. We don't know why it happens. I mean, hell, this happens with psychotropic drugs all the time. The studies show that this particular medication improves depression symptoms. And then you go and look in the PDR and it says mechanism unknown.
Yeah.
In other words, we have no effing clue what it's doing in your body. None at all. We just know that enough people in the studies reported that they felt better after taking it compared to placebo groups, right?
Yep.
So, and so I get what you're saying, but what I don't understand, I guess, is people when they're sold on scientific materialism. Like, I'll give you an example. I watched a Huberman podcast today where Andrew Huberman interviewed, what was that guy's name? Ozzy Wind, I think was his name. He's a mentalist and a magician.
Yep.
Absolutely did some amazing stuff, right? And very much in the stage magician tradition of goes all the way back to Harry Houdini, right? And who's the other one? James Randi. Like he said, he made this statement. He said, I know for a fact, I'm paraphrasing, that nobody has any kind of supernatural powers. Now, you can't really make that statement because you don't know everybody. You don't know every situation. You don't know. I mean, there's so much. I mean, billions of people on the planet. I mean, for all we know, the Marvel universe was telling us the truth about mutants or something. I'm being facetious, but I'm just saying, like, if anybody should be comfortable in the gaps, it should be people who are logical thinkers and committed to scientific materialism. So here's what I'm wondering. it create, because it's kind of done this for me. Even though I've chosen these beliefs and I'm working my way back more into this path for myself, there is a sort of existential dread that goes with it. And here's what I'm going to say. So there has been scientific and academic studies done on the paranormal. If you Wikipedia it, if you go with the party line, it's called a pseudoscience. But if you really get into the weeds with it, there's the Institute of Noetic Sciences that has done solid research. Heart Math Institute has done solid research that leans towards human beings having at least some ability for precognition. Mitch Horowitz does a really good job of going back to earlier experiments and studies that were done on the paranormal when it was more socially acceptable in the 70s, stuff like that. I brought up in my live show on Sunday, there's actually a substantial amount of research on reincarnation of children who could remember past lives that were fairly recent. And
Yep.
those facts could be verified. Like, we're not talking about the Brady Murphy stuff, which started in Pueblo, Colorado, by the way. That was started at the university that I work at. The Brady Murphy thing was the guy that did that was a professor at the university that I work at. And that all turned out to be bullshit. I don't know if people know who Brady Murphy is. You can Google it. But that aside, there is evidence of these things from a scientific perspective. And I guess here's my question. Like, I think the argument could be made that for some people, atheism can lead to an existential crisis, especially if you're coming out of Christianity, right?
Yep.
Because of all the stuff with that. I don't like unpack, get in the weeds with that. But here's the other thing that can be an existential crisis. As a Christian, I knew what happened when I died. I knew the rules of the game. I knew, believe in Jesus, confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, Jesus raised from the dead, and you shall be saved. Somebody dies, comfort each other with, they're in a better place, that kind of stuff. You take that out of the equation and yet still postulate the possibility of a source, a higher being, consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. I think the semantics are the problem. And then you look at and say, wow, even with near-death experiences, the people who claim to have had them are incredibly consistent in their testimony of what happens. Now, the vast majority of people who die and come back to life either didn't have one or don't remember that they had one. I think the argument can be made either way. But there's sort of an existential dread there, because it's like, well, if the Bible isn't true and there is something more than just this biological life on this planet and, sort of random evolution, whatever, what the fuck? Like, that can also lead to an existential crisis. And so I'm just wondering if for some people, atheism resolves the existential crisis and the fear of death.
No,
And
it doesn't. It doesn't. As someone who has been an atheist, right, I can tell you that it doesn't solve the crisis, right? And let me explain why.
Sure.
I was like, okay, we have this life. This is it. That's the atheist viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, I'm gonna tell you, man, love will fuck with you in many different ways.
Well, it's good.
So here's the thing, like with Maya and I,
Mm-hmm.
we've come to the conclusion that this energy that we share in this space now,
Yeah.
that we've shared this in the past, right? And that we share it in the future. In other words, the timeline is pretty fluid. And what we consider to be past, present, and future, it really doesn't matter. If you look at time as spherical and not linear,
Yeah. Right.
then you say, okay.
Time is actually spherical, by the way, because we're going around the sun. But anyway,
I'm completely with you on that.
But I understand what you're saying.
But if you look at time as being spherical, okay, then this has happened before and it'll happen again.
Mhm.
And this was the thing that helped me graduate from atheism, right? Because there's something there. You know, this is an energy that I recognize. I know that I've seen it before, and I'm confident that I'll see it again.
Mhm.
So with that, I'm like, okay, um, it can't just be this. That there has to be something beyond this. Okay, what is that? Is that interdimensionalism? Is it reincarnation? I mean, what is it? But it's something beyond what we understand to be time and space, right?
Mhm.
So once I got that, I was like, okay. And again, Aaron, I tell people all the time. I'm going to repeat this again: that you, Maya, and my sister Sandy, the three of you have basically said, okay, you've taught me something that says that, okay, the atheistic view, the scientific humanist view, that's not it. There's something beyond that. And so I'm like, okay, this energy, it's beyond, it's beyond what I know. It's beyond what I understand. I believe that given a sufficiently long timeline, that I'll figure it out, or that we'll figure it out as humanity. But right now, we don't completely understand it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Let me just interject, and I'll do this delicately, and hopefully I don't step on a landmine here, um, because I know your situation and Maya's
Uh-huh. Yeah.
more than you know. Um, it's so cool to hear you say that because that's one of my immediate thoughts was like this situation is too crazy in a good way. And I'm sure there's people in your life that may have judged you in some way or shape or form, but they don't know the full story. And so for me, it was very clear that you guys had shared this energy before and that there was mm, signposts along the way. Is it okay if I say that?
Yep.
I'm not disclosing anything that I
No,
shouldn't be.
dude, that's perfect.
Um, and but again, so to drive home my point, and I don't know how we got off on this. Well, I do because I brought it up, but um, I guess I was bored with the eclipse talk. But
We'll tie them back together, folks. I promise.
yeah, but here's the point. Like that's a deep truth that you and she share that is unique to the two of you. No one else can verify that, and no one else can negate that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think there has to be space for people to validate and honor the value of their own experiences, even if they can't fully make sense out of those experiences. And from where
Mm.
I sit, in my perspective, that's what I see happening with you is okay, logic, reason, all that stuff's very important. I agree with something Jimmy put. I saw the comment where he said, it becomes damaging when you believe something in spite of objective evidence and you try to force that on other people. I'm kind of paraphrasing for you, Jimmy, because I can't see the
Yep.
comment right now. And I think that's absolutely true. I think so many people disconnect from reality and make dumb decisions and reckless decisions and stuff like that. At the same time, I think there is value to paying attention to the story of our lives and following our bliss, following our intuitions. And for me, and maybe this is because I deal with things, so much one-to-one with people, like I'm not a social worker, I'm not involved in the systems and stuff like that. I'm a counselor. I
Yep.
deal with the result of the broken system in individual lives. Um, I think there's value in that, and I just want to highlight that for people, because I think we can become intimidated by knowledge. We can become intimidated by people that we think are experts who may
Mhm.
hold an opinion that may or may not be correct, but it has the potential to sidetrack us from getting the most out of our lives by following that bliss and following those signposts and following that intuition. Does that make sense? And
Yep.
so I just think it's important to highlight that for people. Like, you really can have both. It's not an either or scenario. You really can look at objective evidence. You really can be a critical thinker. You really can, um, uh, you know, um, have a small enough ego, I guess, to admit that you were wrong about something.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And at the same time, pay attention to what I would call, this is my word, the more mystical side of life
Yep.
when it knocks on your door. So how's that? Was that okay?
No, that's perfect. And you know, that's the thing that if I could say this, that if we're to live
Mhm.
fully formed lives, that we have to live in the balance of the material and the mystical. You know, I don't discount the material. I
Right.
want to know. I want to know. But I also understand that there are things that I don't know and I may not know. And I'm okay with that. But and again, I go back, I've cited this before, that you, Maya, my sister Sandy, right? The three of you particularly have helped me to look beyond, okay, I say, okay, I'm an atheist. And as an atheist, I'm purely material. But I understand now that there's more to it than the material interpretation.
That's a good way to say it, Derek. Yeah. It's a really
There,
good point.
there's something bigger. There's something more nuanced. That's more bifurcated than just what we know to be naturally humanist. And I'm okay with I'm okay with this. And I know that a lot of my atheist friends will take issue with this because I'll say, "Oh, well, Derek, it's just biology. It's just chemistry. It's just physics." And there's something more to it than that. Now, to tie this back to the original discussion, we're talking about prophecy versus these material things.
Right.
You hear a lot of people talking about Mercury and retrograde,
That's the
and
new devil. That's the devil in the New Age movement. Resist
and,
Mercury retrograde and it shall flee.
and the ushering in of the age of Aquarius.
Right.
Okay, I'm tracking with my New Age brothers and sisters with
hmm
that, but I don't think that fully explains things. I don't think that fully articulates, where we are. I think that there's something more. There's something bigger. There's something greater. And this is the thing that this is the challenge that I will say to everybody that's watching. What is it that, first of all, what is it that we're looking for, right? And what is it that we see?
Mm.
What are we looking for versus what is it that we see? So we're talking about prophetic, right? So the prophetic is what we're looking for, right? And and the naturalist is what do we see?
Hmm.
So and I want to talk about this for a minute because one of the things that people who are into the prophetic and man, I'm going to tell you something. As a Christian, when I was a Christian pastor and a Christian ecumenical leader, I used to get frustrated with the prophetic. I would get frustrated with the prophetic because it's like, okay, if you're talking about the prophetic, I want you to peer into the future
Hmm.
and bring back something that is useful to me right now,
Hmm.
right? And for the most part, I never saw that. For the
Hmm.
most part, I never saw that. Now, let me
Right.
say this. I've been in positions where I've operated in the prophetic. I remember one time a lady came to me and she said, "Hey, I've got this job. You know, God has blessed me with this opportunity." And I told her, Aaron, don't take that job. Don't take that job.
Hmm.
And she was like, okay. She said, preacher, that's a hard one for me to swallow because this job is going to pay me $110,000 a year. Now, my thing was that if you take this job, you will make this money, but you will compromise your integrity. That's what I told her. And I'll
Wow.
never forget this. I'll never forget this. And she said, okay, I won't take the job. She didn't take the job and she wound up getting a job that paid like 170,000
Wow.
a year. And her spirit was totally at peace with this. Whereas before she was like she had some concerns. She wasn't 100% sure, but this one here is making more money and she's got peace.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my that was my prophetic moment. That was my prophetic moment, and I've had similar ones to that. And here's the thing: I think that when someone prophesies, that not only should the prophecy be accurate to the individual, but it should render a sense of peace and comfort that comes with that. And that's it's funny because like people will sit up and prophesy. They'll say, "Oh, well, God told me to tell you," and I'm like, dude, that doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with me. But I believe that when you speak prophetically, and again, going back to what you said earlier, Aaron, it's not just Christian. It's when you speak in the prophetic in a universal sense.
Hmm.
That when you speak prophetically in a universal sense, that prophecy should, number one, be something that resonates with that person, and it should be an unpacking of what that person is already that is already touched. Because if you're prophesying something that's like just totally off of left field, that might be bad mayonnaise. That might be a bad the ham went bad or something. It just doesn't work. But when you and let me say this, that I do believe, and my atheist friends will get mad at me about this, that I do believe in the power of the prophetic.
Mhm.
I think that there are people who are able to peer into other dimensions and pull things back. And I think that that's a gift. I think that when you look, man, when you look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon or Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, or you look at Sergey Brin and Google, and you look at these guys, how in the fuck did they figure this out? I mean, this is something that's beyond just an average thought. And,
Mm.
and and what I think is that these guys have all operated, either they themselves operated in the prophetic and they saw into another realm and pulled it back, or they had a prophet speaking into their lives.
Mhm. Yep. I could tell you several experiences. Maybe I should just so people understand where I'm coming from when I talk about it was really hard for me to let go let go and embrace scientific materialism. But I remember uh, we just commemorated I don't know 22 years passing of one of my nieces that died as a baby.
Mm.
Well, she was not quite two. And it was the first death that had impacted me and my siblings, except for maybe my oldest sister who remembers my grandfather who had passed. But for me, I'll just speak for myself. It was the first death I had to experience in my family.
Mm.
And I had to do the funeral.
Wow.
I was able to do the funeral. I don't mean to say it wrong. And we're at the reception, and my wife is the most grounded person ever. Like she probably kept me from going off into spiritual delusions, to be honest, because she was so sorry. My dog is.
No, you're
Hold,
good, man.
hold on 1 second. So she was very well. So yeah, what the hell? I'll share it. I've had too much whiskey.
Go ahead,
So
man.
we were one of those churches, and I'm sure you heard about them. Maybe you had this happen in your church, but we were one of those churches that we had what I could only call some kind of a visitation that was very impactful for a season. And this was during a season where we saw a lot of miracles, a lot of healings, a lot of genuine prophecies that came to pass that were practical. But one of the manifestations that we were having was the oil and the glitter. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we would have, for whatever reason, people would come into our services and would start materialize. Things would materialize. And I have no reason. I have no financial. How is it that scientists say I have no financial connections to any company selling this supplement? Like I'm not making money off of doing spiritual stuff or anything like that. And so we would have people come in. I remember one time there was an unbeliever that came in and oil just started pouring off of her hands. And with this oil, there would come this like golden glitter, right?
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
fragrant. It had a very specific, I've never smelled it before or since. I don't know what it was. And we would have these manifestations a lot. And I remember Julie being so grounded, wanting to make sure that this wasn't, something where our minds was playing tricks on us, right? Like we're in some
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
corporate hypnosis. And and so we were in one of these meetings, and it was during the summer, and we didn't have very good air conditioning in the building we were in. It was an older building. And so people were there in shorts and barefoot and whatever, and I remember looking over at her. She's going to kill me for sharing this story. And she's like smelling her leg. And I'm like, what the heck is she doing? Because I'm still ministering, right? And so when the meeting was all over, she goes back into the bathroom, and she explained later that she was trying to figure out if she was smelling like the lotion that she had put on or something earlier, because the
Mhm.
fragrance was just filling the room, right?
Yep.
And so she goes back into the bathroom, washes her hands, doesn't use soap, uses a paper towel, and sniffs her hands to make sure they smell like those brown paper towels, So she
Yeah.
can't smell any of that stuff. And I'm not kidding you. There was about 5 or 6 witnesses to this. She walks out of the bathroom, and dude, she gets completely spontaneously covered with glitter and oil and a fragrance, that
Mm.
same fragrance off of her. And that's what it took for her to say, okay, maybe there's something to this.
Yep.
So that's the background.
And I'm with you. I've seen that. I've seen that.
So that's the background for this. So we're at the reception, and my wife is right behind one of my sisters, and I'm right behind her. And she acts startled and stunned for a minute. And she tells me later, she says, I was there and we were in line, to get our food. And she said, all of a sudden, your sister turned around and said to me, now this did not happen. This only happened experientially to her. She said, your sister turned around and said to me, I can't believe we're here again as a family so soon.
Okay.
And she didn't know how to make sense of it. Well, we immediately concluded that someone else in our family was going to die soon, which wasn't peaceful
Wow.
at all. Like, it would have been better if it would have been, so and so is going to die so that we're not sitting there thinking, shit, are we going to get in a car accident? Like, I mean, your mind just does crazy things, right? Especially if you're given to
Wow.
anxiety like I am. And, and like, I want to say 5 months later, I forget the exact date, 5 months later, my grandmother, who was perfectly healthy, laid down to take a nap and never woke up. And within 5 months, we were in the same church, in the same line, the same food line. And no shit. So she saw something from the future and brought it back into the present. And I
Hmm.
could tell story after story after story after story after story after story like that. And so that's why I just, trying to make sense of my world has been, and you've heard a lot of them, has been kind of a crazy challenge. So I guess to my final note is that, to me, whether it's like you're talking about, don't take the job. She doesn't take the job, and something else presents itself that was better, that allows her
Was
to keep her
Yep.
integrity intact, or whether it's real signs and wonders, that there's, that's not an eclipse. Like when somebody just spontaneously starts manifesting a fragrant oil with glitter when
Yeah.
they don't want to believe in it in the first place. Like, first of all, if you understand anything about hypnosis, I crack up at these people. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent, but I
Go ahead.
crack up at these guys that have had, one course in NLP, or read a book on hypnosis, or had a couple courses in hypnosis, and they decide everything that happened in the church was group hypnosis. You got to understand, not everybody is hypnotizable. Not
Right.
everybody is given to the power of
Not
suggestion.
everyone is susceptible. Right.
And my wife is not, trust me, she is not given to the power of suggestion. I doubt very seriously if she's hypnotizable, right? And so when you say, well, it's just this hypnosis, it's just this emotionalism, stuff like that, that was not my experience at all. At all.
Yeah.
And so that's left me in this kind of weird space as I'm trying to navigate, because clearly I can see I don't believe for 1 second that that was God confirming the word that I was preaching with signs following. And not every church was having that. Why us? I have no idea. To this day, I have no idea. But that's part of what's in my memory bank, that, and for those of you out there listening, when I started to deconstruct in 2016, I did go get a professional psychological evaluation to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. So there you go. Anyway, that's my. So I guess what I'm saying is I've experienced the genuine prophecy. It's not this spiritual word salad. It's not just plucking verses out of the Bible because you woke up at 133, and so you go look at Psalm 13:3, and that's the word of God from the day or
Right.
whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's
Yep.
just complete bullshit. And there were so many people in the prophetic movement that were out there, that would just give general prophecies. That is hypnosis. Like if I were to say to you, Derrick, something really powerful is going on in your life and you're going through a battle, but it's only temporary because you're about to step into something really great that's going to make you feel better than anything has ever made you feel in your life. Well, okay, you can connect all those dots, right? And I can say
Yeah.
that to anybody else out there, and they can connect them to the specific dots in their lives. And so I do believe there is a genuine prophetic function out there. And it's not this other bullshit. So that's my final word.
Let me say this. Let me throw this out here because you and I, we've talked about like, word of knowledge, word of wisdom kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And when I think of prophecy, that's what I think of,
Yeah, me
right?
too. Me too.
That you're able to speak a word of you know something about someone's life that you shouldn't know. It's like basically you're peering into the private parts of a person's life. So that's a word of knowledge. And then a word of wisdom is, okay, you're looking for an answer. Here's an answer to your question, right? And I've had those experiences, right? And to me, that's true prophecy. That's, it's not picking lottery numbers. It's not, picking out a stock pick or anything like that. People say, oh, well, if they're a true prophet, they can predict the future. No, you can't predict the future. That's not what prophecy is. But when you're able to peer into someone's life and share something with them that only they would know, that's prophecy. So saying this in the context of eclipses and earthquakes and all of that stuff,
Ridiculous.
it's ridiculous because it's global.
Right.
You're not speaking to anyone particularly. You're basically curve fitting your interpretation into a global event, right?
Yep.
And when you do that, you prophesy in error. Now, I want to say this before we go because this is something I wanted to bring up in the conversation is that when someone was accused of false prophecy in biblical days, the punishment was essentially death. Now, I want to bring this up because if you're sitting up here saying, that this eclipse means this, or this earthquake means this, or that this somehow ties back to Exodus 4:8, you are prophesying in error. And if you were to be subjected to biblical standards, you would be stoned to death.
Deuteronomy 13. Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
so the point is that those of you who were, caught up into this whole prophecy machine, just stop and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Honestly, just stop. Because if you're not prophesying accurately, if you're, again, if we were to use the Bible as a litmus test, dude, you're going to die. Stop. Don't,
What's
don't go down this rabbit hole.
What's so funny to me about that is how Lindsay, who probably is the godfather of
Oh my
this
God.
bullshit,
Ugh.
he in his 1970 whatever documentary, The Late
A
Great
late
Planet
great
Earth,
planet Earth.
he starts it out by saying, if you're a false prophet and your predictions don't come to pass, you should be stoned. And then, got way past his predictions, and I guess edited, ripped that part out. Let me say this. I want to say this because I feel like this is important to say. There was profit in my wife's experience. It didn't just like it put me on a bit of a paranoia trip. Not so much her. She's not given to that stuff as much as I am. But there was profit in it in this. And this was a lesson that I took from that I have tried to practice, and maybe a nugget of wisdom that will help some people. It made us hyper aware that my niece's death was not an anomaly, because at the time we thought we could insulate ourselves from all the harm of life by having faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it caused us to do was realize, okay, someone in our family is going to pass away. We don't know who that's going to be. Therefore, we need to be present in each moment with the people that are important with us, or important to us, and have gratitude, and make sure that we do the things and say the things and show the things that we need to do, say, and show when we are with those people, because they're always going to be around. And if you're in a crisis right now, if you're in a difficult situation, know that it has a termination date. Everything's temporal. But if you are not in a crisis, if things are relatively good for you, if you know that the people that you love are safe and you have time with them, cherish those moments and make the most out of those moments. And that's what we learned from that, Derrick. And that's what we started practicing, was like, okay, it may happen in the future, but it's not today. Yeah. And today things are good. Today we have this moment. Today we have this person. And it really taught us not to take those people and those relationships for granted.
Yep.
I just feel like it's important to say that. So even though it was ominous, it was at least for me, it was a reality check,
Yeah.
But there was a very important lesson in that would not have come to us if not for that moment. I remember one last thing I'll share, because I just feel like somebody needs to hear this. Oh, I'm being prophetic.
Prophet, preach, prophet.
I remember going to the museum the first time with our kids when they were old enough to, enjoy the Museum of Natural History up in Denver. And Elijah, who has significant ADHD, he was like, I don't know if you ever saw a Clint Eastwood movie. What was it? Where they were doing Speed Zoo, because he had to get out of there real quick. He had his daughter, and he's like rushing her through the zoo. I can't remember the name of the movie. Blood Simple or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And so Josiah was taking his time with everything, and Elijah was just going from exhibit to exhibit to exhibit to exhibit. And I'm following him, and I'm like, hey, dude, come, take this in, or whatever. And whatever that voice is, whether it's my deeper self, my higher self, my random thought, at the time I thought it was the Holy Spirit, but I heard this thing inside me said, Aaron, that's exactly how you live your life. You're constantly missing the present thing because you're chasing the next thing.
That's the lesson in mindfulness right there, my friend.
And that hit me. And this was after, years after all that stuff with my niece and my grandmother. And it reminded me of that time. And it reminded me of that lesson that, like, man, we really need to take each moment as precious. And, I'm going to quote the Dead Poets Society. I can't remember what poet he quoted in there, but suck the marrow out of life, right? Suck the marrow out of each moment. And if your life is if you're in a good place and you're in a happy place, man, cherish those times. Be grateful for those times. Get the most out of those times. And that's what I learned from that experience. So I just wanted to throw that in. Like, it wasn't a experience without purpose. It had a much more profound impact and meaning than just get ready, somebody else in your family is going to die. And I just wanted to share that.
So I got to share this, right? Maya has shared this with me, and I actually wanted to open up the show with this, but she was like, "Okay, my fiance is an attorney, and she said, if you want to get someone to recuse themselves from jury duty or something like that, this is what you say." So I'm gonna put on my best Sean Connery voice and read this. And it says, the true Lord Grimlock foretold that in the year of the great solar eclipse, my nights would turn to day on the precipice of the midsummer's equinox. And on this day, a new reality of fortune, love, and prosperity shall shine into my life, uniting chakras and auras.
I am so totally going to use that next time I have to go to jury duty. I got picked for a jury, and it was the most miserable week of my life.
Well,
I'm so use that next time.
I got to tell you this, right? One time I was on a jury, I was going through, I was in jury selection for a murder trial. And this is what I did to get out of this. I said, listen, I said, if you're looking for somebody to actually stand up there and pull the fucking switch, I'm that fucking guy. I'm like, let's go. Pull the fucking switch. Let's get him out of here. Fuck this, man. Let's go. Let's fucking go. And they were like, this guy is not selected.
I actually had to sit on I got seated in for a jury in a murder trial because I've done it twice. And fortunately for me, when they asked me some questions, I was working as an intern at the forensic mental institution. And I guess they decided between that and being a pastor that I was not. And here's what's funny. At that time, I definitely leaned more towards pulling the switch. And this guy, turns out he was convicted. He was very guilty. It was a very horrible crime. But it was funny because it was the prosecutors that kicked me off the jury. And I think my predisposition would have been to side with the prosecuting attorney.
Yeah. That's the way I was. I was like, I'm siding with the prosecution. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Pull the switch. I'm here. I'm here for it.
Yeah. He ultimately was guilty. And then the trial I was on, the guy was guilty of sin. And we had one juror that just wanted to own the room and be contrarian. Didn't matter what the evidence was. Didn't matter what the law said. Until it was a hung jury. It sucked.
So Maya just chimed in. She said, correction, sir. That was in response to your topic for the night.
Oh.
But anytime you claim prophecy in certain situations, yep, you won't have to do it, and you will be discounted.
Remember that. Now, if they drag up a recording of this, and am I not doing my civic duty, and am I going to get some kind of what would that be, perjury? Because I'm under oath when I'm answering the questions. So would that be perjury?
Listen, if anything comes up legally, Maya's going to come up and she's going to dissect it, and she'll straighten us out.
I love it. It's great.
All right, you want to read through any comments before we go, or are we good?
No, let's do that. It's clever. Make yourself. I'm laughing at Maya's last comment.
Yeah. Her last comment is hilarious.
Can we bring that back for false prophets? Gemini just says, or guest says, can we bring that back for false prophets? Shut a lot of people up. Jimmy says, off with their head. Jimmy says, I'm one of those that can't be hypnotized, but my significant other is susceptible to suggestion. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's like for Jimmy, I would like to be a fly on the wall between him and his significant other, who's Catholic. Jimmy's a hardcore atheist. So I think that tapping into those conversations will be absolute fun.
I love this. Yeah, it would be great. I love this. Sandra says, our journey is a singular thing, my brother. We experience each other, sure, but we are born, live, and die by ourselves. Just do you. I think that's really sound wise advice.
Yeah, that's profound. Yeah, I like what Jimmy said too. He said, learning to reconcile one's logical side with one's emotional side is a lifelong endeavor that deserves exploration. I truly believe that with all of who I am. And Jimmy, I'm going to tell you something, man. from someone who is an avowed atheist as you, that is a profound statement.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jimmy's well, you and Jimmy. But when I was talking about atheists and how they get triggered, he's very much the exception to that. I did a show with him, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I found him to be very open-minded and personable. Yep. It was just a great time for me. Oh, here's a great one. Jimmy says, "You make perfect sense, Aaron."
Oh, of course. Of course you say that's a great one.
Just had to highlight that one. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, I've been gone for a minute, so my cat is like super clingy right now. He's on my desk.
That's funny.
So Jimmy has said, he said, I keep it simple because if I don't, I'll drive myself crazy. I'm part of the universe and I will learn more when the time to do so presents itself. I totally trust the universe because I trust myself. I hope that makes sense. It makes absolutely perfect sense, Jimmy.
Yeah, I love this comment from Sandra. I think it's perfectly okay if we all have different beliefs or different versions of beliefs. It's what sets us apart from strict rules and demands. Isn't that a good statement?
Yeah,
Sets us
that's
apart from
clutch.
strict rules and demands. If nothing else, I want to always wander and explore different things.
Yep.
Amen. I'm right there with you. A lot of good engagement tonight.
Yeah, some good stuff. My mom sent me a text. I'm like, why is she? Why is my mom texting me? I just talked to her a couple of days ago. But let me say this while I'm here, my mom is coming up on her 84th birthday,
Wow.
April
That's
18th. She'll be 84 years old, and I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be having a discussion about my mom being 84.
hmm.
And here we are.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have like Aaron and you, and others, you know that your mom has passed on, you know, dude, I want to make sure that I honor my mom for your sake.
Hmm. Yeah. It's a gift. It's a
Yeah,
gift. All right, man. I think we nailed it. This was
yeah,
fun. This was really
yeah.
productive,
This
I thought.
is a very good conversation, but you know, again, here's the thing: for those of you who are looking for a sign, if you're looking for a sign, look within. Don't look without.
It's good.
It's like the you know you'll see all these things going on, signs and wonders. You know, the signs are within you.
Love that.
That's what I'll say.
Love that. All right, brother.
All right, man.
Great show.
Holler at me.
All
I'm
right.
here.
All
All
right.
right.
All right.
Hey, go ahead, close this out, man.
All right.
You got to do your thing.
Guys, thanks for coming to our little trip into the Twilight Zone.
Ding, 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 ding.
No, really. Thanks for spending time with us. Thanks for being engaged. And peace, everybody. Just wish you all peace, genuinely.
All right. Love y'all. All right.